What's up, everyone? It's Deshaun. We're back again with another Yap Sesh. I'm your host. I already said my name. Oh, well. Anyways, today we're going to be talking about Sinners, the movie by Ryan Coogler. If you have not seen it yet, you should have by now. It's been a month, I believe. So, yeah. What are you waiting for? I do have something that I want to discuss about this movie. Obviously, I wouldn't be making this video if I wasn't. But before I get into what I really want to say, I have to talk about the first thing I thought of towards the end of this movie. And that was that I've seen Michael B. Jordan die on screen enough times. Like, it gets to a point where it's like there is a cinematic universe of Michael B. Jordan dying. And it's kind of crazy at this point. I mean, like, I watched him die in The Wire. I watched him die in Fruitvale Station. I watched him die in Black Panther. I watched him die in Chronicle. I watched him die in this movie. At some point, we have to stop watching Michael B. Jordan die. Did he die? Did he die in Fantastic Four? I can't remember. I don't think he did. Without Remorse. Did he die in Without Remorse? I forgot how the movie ends. I don't think he died in Without Remorse either. But, like, bro, can Michael B. Jordan live? That's so hilariously funny. It's kind of crazy. Like, I did not piece that together until it hit me when the movie was ending. I was like, yo, I've seen Michael B. Jordan die a lot. It has to do something to your mental. Like, there's no way it doesn't. Like, anyway. Sinners was a really good movie. I thoroughly enjoyed it, to be completely honest with you. Is for one thing I've noticed about Ryan Coogler in particular is he knows how to create an experience. And I know that, like, you could say that all movies are an experience, but personally, I don't necessarily find that to be the case. Like, when not every Marvel movie, in my opinion, is going to have a moment. Not every, studio movie in general is going to have a moment as well. But, like, when I think about certain movies, like Top Gun Maverick, I feel like is a good example of a movie that was an experience. I think the pandemic helped with that experience. I don't know that if there wasn't a pandemic, the movie would have been received the same. But yeah. So shout out to Corona for that. Obviously, like, Endgame. I feel like the Matrix movies, when they came out, I was like, I don't know how it was, but I was not at the theater when it came out, but from what I know Matrix was an experience, especially the last two. There's plenty of movies that have an experience. The first Black Panther that Ryan Coogler directed was an experience in itself. People were putting on a show with all the stuff they were wearing just to come out and support Ryan. So, I like that about him as a director. I feel like he always knows how to bring an experience. And so Sinners was definitely an experience. And there's so much symbolism that flows throughout this film that, you could watch it over and over and over again and pick up something new. And so I feel like this was, a lot of people compared it to like a Get Out or a Jordan Peele movie in general. And although before I saw it, I kind of felt like it was in that same vein. I'm not going to say that it's completely not after watching it, but it definitely is its own thing separate from, the Jordan Peele experience. So I almost said Jordan Peele. That would have been crazy. Anyways, so I'd say that this movie is about an 8 to like a 9 for me. I will admit, though, if I'm incorporating experience, I don't necessarily think, and this is just my opinion, I don't think it has The Harder They Fall beat completely. Like, I just think I love The Harder They Fall. It's one of my favorite movies. In the last, I don't know, I think it's been like 6 years since it came out. Maybe not that long. Maybe 5, maybe 4. I don't know. But it's been a while since The Harder They Fall came out, and I love that movie. I watch it all the time. I really wish I would have got to experience that in theaters. But yeah, like I would put like The Harder They Fall about here, and then maybe just like Sinners. As far as like black experience film goes, um, I put Get Out above that, but like it's pretty close between those three. Obviously, they're not the obviously The Harder They Fall isn't necessarily the same kind of thriller horror type of genre movie, but as far as like black experience in the movie theater, out of those three, those are my three that come to mind. And so for me, yeah, for sure, that in that order. One of my favorite parts about this movie is the exploration of blues music, and it brought me to kind of an idea of blues then is trap today, right? Is gangster rap music, whatever you want to call it, today. And so there's a scene where Delroy Lindo's character talks about his friend getting lynched, and kind of just like takes that hurt and that pain and turns it into a beat. And that scene in particular is important to Sammy specifically because it kind of informs his decision towards the end of the movie, but also it's his. I mean, I wouldn't have this context, but I'm going to assume it's one of his first times like visually seeing how trauma turns into music, right? And that same thing exists for black people still today. These rappers, they grow up in communities that aren't necessarily safe, that are prone to violence, sex, drugs, things like that. Things that are inherently not good for someone to experience. It's not necessarily the same thing as slavery, but if you ask Kanye, it's pretty close. And so these rappers take the trauma, the PTSD that comes with living in these environments, and they turn it into this music, these melodies, and then they become millionaires off of it, right? And so the same system that oppresses them creates how do I say? I don't want to necessarily say like a mogul, but like creates an experience that allows them to escape it, but also inform people of it and things like that, right? So I think about like Tupac. I feel like G Herbo is a really good example. He's someone who definitely expresses like the PTSD of growing up in the hood, right? And so that's kind of what I took away. And there's definitely that scene of kind of showing the evolution of music. So that's one thing that really prompted this for me. But this is kind of just taking that scene itself and dissecting it a little bit more. Speaking of like evolution of trauma, I thought it was interesting to see Sammy's scar in the post-credit scene or whatever. Because to me the scar represents more than just like how do I say, like I'm trying to think of a word, but basically the scar that Sammy has on his face that you see in the post-credit scene, to me it represents the residual trauma that exists today in the black community, right? Like anyone over like 70 has probably, even like 65 really, like has probably experienced some form of segregation today. And like many of us have grandparents, and I mean some people, I'm kind of thinking like 40s and 50s, right, have parents who are in their 70s and 80s who probably have these experiences, and they kind of show you pictures of Martin Luther King and things like this in black and white so you disassociate from the fact that there are people still living today who took place in these things. I mean, when you think about Jerry Jones, there's that photo of him. Some people say he was not protesting, he was just there. If you believe that, then you believe that, but like Jerry Jones is still alive and is the owner of the Dallas Cowboys, and there's a photo of him protesting black people entering his school. So what I'm saying, like there are examples of this. Like, there was intention behind that scar, because that scar, I'd like to assume, informed his decision making. And it probably was, if I'm thinking about the context of him creating music, was kind of like it was a visual impurity that people could see, right? So like in a meeting with like a music exec or something like that at a show, people see that scar. And so when you go from like the civil rights movement to, and you transition into the 80s and the 90s and the hippie movements and things like that, and you get technologically more advanced, and things start to evolve and things start to get better for Black people, but that residual trauma still exists and manifests in different ways, in different forms. And so that is something that's really important and that needs to be talked about. And to me, I feel like that's what that scar represents. And so I can't help but to think that it also, how do I say this? It also represents the grace of God. Okay, stick with me, because I don't want to like start preaching for real, but just give me a second. So the scar represents the grace of God in a way, because the wages of sin are death, right? The Bible says. And because the wages of sin are death, means that if you consistently live a sinful life, you will die without knowing who God is, right? Because sin is separation from God. And so, although if you truly accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, you are a believer, God's grace works throughout your life, right? So it doesn't necessarily mean that you may not sin, or you may not sin, or you won't sin, because we all fall short of the glory of God. But because you are a believer, because you have picked up your cross and you are following Christ, you get grace, right? And so a lot of times we find ourselves in situations where we doing something that we know we shouldn't be doing, but we don't necessarily reap the consequences of what we sowed because of God's grace, right? And so I think that scar represents the idea that just because you've separated yourself or have been in a season of separation doesn't mean God is going to let the devil win against you, right? And so I think it's a bit of a double entendre, right? So the scar represents the residual trauma, and it also represents the grace of God, and I keep forgetting the words, man. It represents the grace of God and also represents just represents the grace of God and what his love can save you from, no matter who you are or what you've been through, right? And so, okay, I'm gonna stop preaching now. I hope it wasn't too crazy, but yeah. Remick is a very interesting character to me, because he's a fun character to dissect, because there's a lot of depth to what he is, who he is, and it's one that I am about to explore and will continue to explore, because there's a lot that breaks down. And so Remick is interesting because he's similar to Killmonger a little bit, and I'm just using Killmonger as an example because Ryan Coogler likes to craft these villains that kind of exist in the gray area a little bit. And so for me, it's like I can see where Remick is coming from. Like, it makes sense. Like, he is this white supernatural powered being, and he's given, and trying to empower Black people to kind of to liberate themselves in a way, right? Because he's, from his perspective, it's like, yo, there are white people who are trying to kill you and who plan to kill you, and you let me bite you, and you will have the supernatural ability to defend yourself, to liberate yourselves, and ultimately, provide a better life for people who look like you. But also there is that version of that through the black lens, and it's like, well, to us, you're still just a white person trying to take what we have. And those cultural contradictions still exist today, right? Like parents not wanting the history taught to their kids because they believe that it's teaching their kids to be that they are racist, and history informs the future. But it's like, I'm gonna just leave it there. And then there's also people who, their ancestors have history of generational oppression, but also want to make America great again and go back to the golden age of America. You see what I'm saying? Cultural contradictions. And so I kind of want to I kind of want to touch on, like, what can you take away from Sinners? And one of the first things I want to say is, one thing you could take away from Sinners from its start to finish is that you need to be intentional, right? And so I think the filmmakers that really learn how to be intentional are the ones who survive, whether it's James Cameron, Tom Cruise, Ryan Coogler, Jordan Peele, the list goes on. Like the big name directors that we can continually see to push the bounds of what it is to be a filmmaker are the ones who are intentional, who didn't become filmmakers, because they thought it was cool. Well, I'm sure that's what started as, but they have a story to tell. And so I think if you can learn how to be intentional with the stories you want to tell, and not just shoot this because it looks cool or do this because everyone else is doing it, you will be a better filmmaker for it, and you will ultimately stand out. And when you are true to yourself, and I don't want to get into an AI conversation, but this is kind of what plays into the AI world just a little bit, is when you can separate yourself, you allow for the opportunity to be known, I guess I'll say. Like, you allow the opportunity to get noticed more. And so you kind of have to be true to yourself. Like, if you're chasing trends, you kind of just fall to the wayside. And this isn't necessarily, and when I say trends, I don't necessarily mean like social media. It's in particular, like, I'm also kind of including that in, but what I really mean is we are all the same on this earth, but we are also different at the same time. And if you lean into what makes you different, it will inform your filmmaking, your life, and your journey, and it will help you, right? It genuinely will help you. And then my second point is, it's kind of funny because it may sound contradicting, but you also have to learn how to be influenced, right? And so what I mean is, you have to be able to open yourself up, because as a filmmaker, you are an artist, and art is subjective, but it's also not. And so art comes in different shapes and forms. And so if you are just someone who only watches like a certain genre or of movies, only listens to a certain genre of music, isn't someone who like reads and stuff like that, like, you have to open yourself up to be influenced by art, life, experiences, and that is also going to inform your filmmaking. And then also the other art forms that exist, and I actually plan to make a video about this on how to be influenced. If you learn how to take these experiences and apply it in ways that are visually and emotionally captivating, you will find success in your filmmaking, and it will benefit you, and you will find success, and you will you will find success, and you will succeed. You will find success, and you will be able to tell the stories that you want to tell. And so I want to talk about spinoffs. I would be interested to see. How do I say this? I would be interested to see Stack's character, kind of like a little bit of a vampire Django, like a movie where he pretty much is uh, like a freedom fighter, even though like they were already free, but like there's still people who were experiencing cruelties in jail and stuff like that. There were a lot of people at the like in the 20s or in the 30s, 20s and 30s who were like still in like smaller regions of America who are actually like still slaves. Um, so I think it would be interesting to see, Stack kind of like traveling through time, uh, doing different things, liberating people. So like kind of like a vampire Django in a way. I would love to see something like that. Not even necessarily a movie, but like maybe like a limited series or something like that. I believe that Ryan Coogler should have the ability. As much as I hate sequels and reboots and remakes, I think Ryan Coogler has earned the right to build out this world how he sees fit, and maybe a limited series or something like that would be interesting to see. In any prequel movie or limited series would be interesting. I'd love to see how I'd love to see the hoodoo world kind of explored on screen. Maybe even if it's not Annie in particular, but like just kind of like a hoodoo experience. This made me think of I kind of just thought of like a Ryan Coogler Princess and the Frog movie. So random, but a Ryan Coogler Princess and the Frog movie where well, that was voodoo, but um a Ryan Coogler Princess and the Frog movie where he explores like voodoo and like the New Orleans kind of thing. Honestly, I don't think that's a bad idea. Like I think if you got Anthony Mackie, someone who's from New Orleans, like involved with that, I think it could be interesting. Like a New Orleans based voodoo uh horror film. I think that would be really interesting. Wow, that was on the spot. Like this is not in the notes. Yes, this is off the dome. That's crazy. Oh my goodness, that's crazy. I can't wait to clip that up. Um, Last thing I want to talk about is the MCU. This is gonna get interesting. So this is gonna get spicy because there was like this up. A lot of people were bullish on Ryan Coogler directing Blade. I saw a lot of people like posting like Marvel, you have your Blade director, and I'm gonna be so for real. I don't want that. I absolutely do not want that because from my perspective, or me, if I'm Ryan Coogler, I would take it as disrespect for Marvel to be like, because your vampire movie worked, come make ours. Nah, dog. Absolutely not. It would be, if I'm Ryan Coogler, I would take it to disrespect, if I'm being honest, because for one, Blade has been in production longer than Blade was in production before he even wrote the script for Sinners. And so I know I mean, I don't know for a fact, but I'm going to assume that Marvel knew about this movie when he was trying to sell it. And not necessarily, I mean, they couldn't really buy it, but you know what I'm saying? Like they knew that this film was being marketed and trying to get picked up by somebody. So for them to just turn around and be like, a lot of people like your vampire movie, come make ours. Absolutely not me. I mean, we may be different, but I don't think he would do it. But I think it was their own fault. Like, there's nobody in Hollywood you could have got to direct Blade. I simply just don't believe that. There is a movie I would love to see Ryan Coogler direct after Black Panther 3. And I actually saw some reports on this week, so I'm kind of, I wish I would have got this video out a couple weeks ago, because now it's kind of like on the rumor mills. So I set myself up. But anyways, when you think about what Ryan Coogler does well, I'm not gonna give it away yet. When you think about what Ryan Coogler does well, he is a director that is driven by emotion. He knows how to captivate every which way to show that this character is in distress. This character feels something, right? And he's worked with ensemble cast before. I think if you take very, very emotionally driven characters in an ensemble cast and you put them together, there is only one group of Marvel characters that is a great formula for, and it is the X-Men. Ryan Coogler, without a shadow of a doubt, should be directing phase, was it 7, 8, whatever, X-Men. Yeah, 100% that should be his next step. I'd like to imagine that after Black Panther 3, there's not going to be a Black Panther 4. I mean, maybe, but I'm going to assume that Black Panther 3 is going to be the end of not Black Panther the character, but like Black Panther movies. So I think X-Men would be pretty dope. Anyways, that is all I have for you guys. If there's anyone that actually got through this whole video, I do appreciate it. I hope the clips I can get from this actually, bring traction to this video. But thanks for watching. If there's anyone who did make it to the end of this video, I appreciate it. And I love you. Bye.